And a huge thanks to our sponsor, Mitsubishi Electric. Mitsubishi provides all your heating, cooling, and filtration needs all in one system. Today's low-load homes require right-sized equipment, and the most systems, especially gas-fired, cannot meet this. Mitsubishi has low-load, high-efficient heat pumps that dehumidify and cool in the summer and work in reverse to heat in the winter. Going ductless also reduces costs and can make it easier to meet ENERGY STAR version 3 and LEED for Homes certification. Ductless mini-splits can now be hidden in many different ways to meet your client's needs, and ducted systems can now be used as well. Ducted systems are hidden behind the walls to ensure a beautiful space and can be retrofitted in to replace a furnace in existing single-family or multi-family projects. Hyperheat ensures efficient heat delivery down to -13 degrees, and backup strip heaters can kick in during rare but coldest of the cold days. Each room of a house can have customized comfort while being all electric and energy efficient for your clients, and only heat or cool rooms that actually need it. Multifamily and commercial use centralized variable refrigerant flow or VRF systems that work great on larger projects looking to serve whole buildings. And VRF heat recovery technology permits for simultaneous cooling and heating. As this illustration depicts, a space can have many purposely designed areas, each requiring a different cooling or heating need. Make sure to check out Mitsubishi Comfort for all your HVAC needs today. All right, well, welcome to How to Electrify Everything in Your Life. This course is approved for 1 hour in continuing ed, GBCI, AIBD, Certified Green Professional, and BPI NonWholeHouse, as well as AIA Health, Welfare, and Safety, or HSW, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. Today I'll be your moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I am the Executive Director here at the nonprofit, the GreenHome Institute. Today we're going to be talking about how and why you should go all electric and practical approaches to get there.
Well, welcome our speaker today, Nate Adams. He is the author of the Home Comfort Book, A Homeowner's Guide to Building Science, and the co-founder of Energy Smart Home Performance, a practice which helps homeowners solve these problems effectively. Nate has written or spoken at numerous venues, including the Department of Energy and the Ohio State University. Nate loves to make homes ready for the next 100 years by electrifying everything and removing gas meters so homes can run on renewable energy. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brett. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. We're going to talk about electrifying everything today and how this is a great rallying cry. First off, let's define it. If it's going to let me. There we go. So how I define electrify everything is converting fossil fuel appliances to electric ones and then running them on renewable energy. This means that it's really the fastest way to renewable energy of anything that I can think of. And it's also nice because it is not divisive. I don't care who you are, you like renewable energy, you like energy efficiency, and you like cooking, which we're going to get into a lot here. So to give a little bit of cred on Electrify Everything, so we removed our first gas meter in 2013. This is really kind of funny to me because my partner and I have followed Amory Lovins and the Rocky Mountain Institute for years, and they're just putting out papers, which we'll be talking about in a minute, about electrification, and they're modeling electrification, and we pulled our first meter 5 years ago. So we are actually ahead of Rocky Mountain Institute, which is kind of wild. Never thought I'd be here. We have done 9 electrifications to this point. 8 of them were existing homes, 1 new one, and I define it as HVAC and domestic hot water, which you'll see why in a minute. Of those 7 gas meters were removed. One of them is really funny, why the meter's not gone yet. The client has a gas light, which cracks me up. If you think about the debate side of that. We do this in a cold climate. We have no programs, no rebates. We've got some of the lowest housing costs in the country. We have very cheap natural gas, and our electricity prices are moderate. So we have a lot of headwinds, working against us, yet we're still doing this. So if we can do this, anybody can do it. And in fact, we're about to work on starting to teach people how to do it. So here's what we're going to dig into today. So we're going to start talking about how Electrify Everything and electrification in general is gaining traction. We'll talk about what it is and what it isn't. I'll give you a project example, one of my favorites. We'll take a look at high-level and ground-level views, and we'll discuss how to talk about it with clients, and then talk about making it a movement, building a movement out of it. So let's dig into the gaining traction side of things. So this term was coined by David Roberts last fall, Electrify Everything. I love that it is a alliteration. It's sticky. Now, one point that I want to make here, and I'm going to continue to make it through this, is he's talking about climate change. It is a dangerous thing to bring up with a lot of clients because some people are not going to follow along with you on that. So we do our very best in our messaging to avoid climate and instead to talk about things that those clients care about and how electrification can solve their problems that they're trying to solve with options that just happen to be electric. This is a slide from NREL's electrification study, and I really, really like this little graphic here. So note everything in blue. That is all of the stuff in homes, in U.S. homes, that is run with electricity. All of that is a really easy switch. All we have to do is, in most parts of the country, make a phone call and switch our energy supply to be renewable. So I've done this at my house. It actually reduced my costs a little bit. And just by switching that to renewable energy, number one, it wipes out about 1/4 of your carbon footprint. And number two, it's easy. So it's wonderful. Now, the second thing to note about this chart is note everything that's not blue. Most of it is in space heating and water heating. That's where our big targets are. So in everything we do, we want to aim in particular at space heating and water heating. So we'll keep going. This is the cover from the NREL study that I just mentioned. This is a really good one to look at for a high-level view. They've got good explanations and really good charts, which can be helpful if you need to explain something. This is National Grid's recent story, recent study rather. So it's the Northeast, it's 80% reduction by 2050 pathway. So my friend McKay Miller is one of the authors on this, and an important thing to note about electrification that he told me is until we get to 30% penetration of both electric cars and heat pumps, the grid as it stands today is likely to be able to handle it. So we can do quite a bit of work, electrify quite a few buildings before we put a substantial strain on the grid. And I found that to be really encouraging. So I mentioned Rocky Mountain Institute before. This is the paper they just came out with. It was last month. And I like this one because where the other two that I showed you are, they're big scale. They're looking at the entire economy. It includes commercial, industrial, transportation, you name it, it's all in there. RMI is looking at the economics of electrifying buildings and particularly homes. So they did some cost estimates and seeing how things penciled economically for both existing homes and new homes in 4 different places across the country. So Houston, Rhode Island, Chicago, and I'm forgetting one. And what they found is the same thing that we have found in actually doing it, which is in new homes, you can make it pencil anywhere because it isn't necessarily a giant addition. But on existing homes, it's pretty expensive, and that's what we find, because if you're going to electrify a home, generally you have to reduce its load. So you're going to have to do some air sealing and insulation, and then you have to change the HVAC. If you're doing substantial jobs of both of those to a house, you're looking at a lot of money. You're easily in the $20,000 to $40,000 range, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not really that big of a deal. It's the equivalent of a minor kitchen remodel, and we can electrify a house and oftentimes make them far better places to live. So anyway, it's funny to be actually ahead of RMI for the moment. So the other ones are talking high level, and they're rosy. Like one of the things that I notice in them is they don't talk very much about how to actually sell these projects. And this is a war that is won at the kitchen table. If you don't sell a project, nothing happens. And so this is a recent article by David Roberts, who he tells the story of trying to electrify his own home, which we actually tried to help him with. And it was kind of crazy because the contractor was really fighting him. They didn't want to do a heat pump. They had already sold a furnace. They wanted to sell the furnace. So the guy who coined the term Electrify Everything had a brand new gas line run to his house 3 years ago. That gives you an idea of just how hard this is to solve. And I should mention, at my own house, I still have a gas boiler, and a couple of reasons for that. Number one, my house is really difficult to electrify. I'm looking at $20,000 to $40,000 in HVAC alone. And I'm also waiting on technology that's coming in the next couple of years to be able to change out my boiler with an air-to-water heat pump. So this is hard. This isn't easy. There's a lot of things getting in the way. Another article that talks about how difficult it is, this is a GTM piece by Justin Gerdes, talking about Justin Guay of the Climate Works Foundation and how much trouble Guay had electrifying his house. He really struggled. So he couldn't find a contractor that was interested in helping him. Everybody was throwing out barriers left and right. All of the rebates leaned towards natural gas. There was no help with an electrification project. And this is in San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco, just like actually where David Roberts lives in Seattle, these are perfect, absolutely perfect heat pump climates. They don't get super cold. These climates are built for heat pumps, yet there's furnaces being sold there. That's something that could use some adjustment. So Guay's piece actually inspired me to write mine. So this is Electrify Everything, a practical guide to ditching your gas meter, which Green Tech published last month. Actually, it was 2 months ago, back in May. And that's part of what precipitated this webinar, as well as I was on the Energy Gang talking about this too. So this is a pretty long piece. It's almost 3,000 words. I do highly recommend, if you have any interest in this, please go read it, because today I'm really going to be touching mountaintops. I'm not going to get into anything super deep, and that dives considerably deeper into the 30,000-foot view, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. Okay, let's talk about what Electrify Everything is and isn't. What it is a rallying cry. So hopefully everybody here remembers Braveheart. This was a great movie. I remember seeing this when it came out. Walter Williams. Shoot, I can't even think of his name now. William Wallace screaming freedom. This was kind of an archetype of what I have in mind for Electrify Everything. It is a rallying cry. This is something for us all to talk about and to begin to move the narrative forward on and to build a movement around. By the way, the Electrify Everything logo that's at the bottom, it's a modified hashtag. My wife is a designer. She designed that. That is free for anybody to use. If you want to use that, use it. And Brett can put that in the email when the slides get sent out. So something that Electrify Everything isn't now is a sacrifice, and that's anymore. This is pretty recent. So on the left is a little commuter car that's actually for sale a mile down the road from my house right now. That is a little 40-mile range electric car from the 70s with a 45-mile-an-hour maximum speed. That is not a replacement for a car. That's a sacrifice compared to a normal car. Meanwhile, on the right, that is Yo-Yo Zoo's Tesla Model 3 that I went to drive back in January. It was supposed to be there at 5 p.m. and the whole thing was running behind, so like 4 a.m. he shows up and I got to drive that car. I am a car guy. I've driven a Ferrari. I've driven a bunch of Rolls Royces. Mercedes, Packards, lots of BMWs. I've driven a lot of cars and a lot of fast cars and a lot of cool cars. So I'm a car guy. I loved that car. It reminded me of the BMW M3 that I've wanted for years and years and years. So I'm going to get an M3. It will just be a Tesla Model 3 instead of a Beamer. So let's talk about the other pieces of this too. So yesterday versus today has really flipped, particularly in the last couple of years. So yesterday, renewables were expensive. They cost far more than traditional generation sources. Now they're cheap. Renewables are now the least expensive form to generate electricity, or at least new electricity, in most of the world, even without subsidies. Yesterday, heat pumps were expensive. They didn't perform well in cold weather, so they would go into resistance pretty quickly, and people would get really big bills, and that wasn't a good consumer experience. Today, we're finding that they have operation cost parity to gas. So with dirt cheap gas and moderately priced electricity, they are basically in a dead heat. There are a bunch of links at the end of this, and one of the links will talk about the costs between two of our project houses, one with a furnace, one with a heat pump. Yesterday, heat pumps offered pretty poor comfort, and today, thanks to the variable speed modulating inverter-driven heat pumps, these things are awesome. One of my clients, which actually we're going to talk about in a little bit, an HVAC expert friend of mine, stopped by at Thanksgiving a couple years back, got to visit the house, and declared it had womb-like comfort. And comfort, as everybody knows on this call, is a huge selling point. So we now have that. And in my book, which you can download the first 2 chapters for free at natethehousewhisperer.com, they talk a lot about mean radiant temperature and how right-sizing equipment is important. We can provide much better comfort with heat pumps, so do not lose sight of that. That's a really important point. Yesterday we had resistance water heaters. They cost a fortune to run. They're simple creatures though. Today we have heat pump water heaters. Take a look at the energy guides on those things. Now the energy prices that are put in it are not perfect, but the energy guides for the heat pump water heaters today will say $110 to $120 a year for operation costs. Very few gas water heaters are below $200. So even when you adjust for the fuel prices not being perfect, heat pump water heaters are very cost competitive, if not less expensive than natural gas. I have one in my house, by the way. At one point this winter, we had 13 people in our house. I put it on hybrid mode, and we never ran out of hot water with a 50-gallon tank. So if anybody gives that objection, it's not true. Heat pump water heaters will keep up. Yesterday, we had resistance cooking, electric cooking. Most people don't like that. I can't stand it. I tend to burn things. Granted, I burn things on just about everything. I preferred gas until recently, but now we have induction cooking, which we're going to talk about a lot. This is actually the key to getting rid of gas meters. If you can't get rid of the gas cooktop, you can't get rid of the gas meter. Yesterday we had a Communicar. Today we have a Tesla Model 3. There's also the Chevy Bolt. There's a whole pile of good products that are on their way in right now. Yesterday we had energy efficiency programs, or Home Performance 1.0. Today we have Home Performance 2.0, which I'll be touching on a little bit. So when you add all that up, yesterday Electrify Everything was a crappy experience, and today it's a superior experience. That's amazing. What it isn't, though, this is not a sales ploy. Electrify Everything on its own is not worth a lot of money to anyone. I assume most people here have been in the field long enough to know that energy efficiency is not a selling point. As soon as you mention efficiency, people ask about payback, and they usually want 5 years or less payback, maybe 10. You don't get that kind of rate of return unless your name is Tony or Guido. The only thing that you can reliably tell them will hit that is changing an incandescent bulb to an LED. That's really the only thing. So efficiency doesn't sell. It is a result. It is not a goal. And Electrify Everything works the same way. It may be worth a little bit of money to people, but it's frankly largely virtue signaling. Like changing my house over is going to be essentially virtue signaling, saying that I'm better than you, something like that. That is not how we want to do this, and that is usually not worth a lot of money in the market. So don't lead with this. It's not a good thing to lead with, but we'll talk about how to get it done anyway. What it is a rallying cry to accelerate adoption. So this is probably going to be too small, but I encourage everyone to look up this adoption rate curve that BlackRock put out. So this shows the adoption of a bunch of different technologies since 1900. So the top couple are telephone and electricity, and the bottom couple are the smartphone and the tablet. The things to notice here are these things all caught fire quickly. And why did they catch fire quickly? Because they were better. A telephone is far better than having to walk to your neighbor to talk to them. Electricity, it's nice when you don't burn houses down with candles. Smartphones, on the other side, flip phones were okay, but man, smartphones do an awful lot more. Right? Look at that adoption curve. I mean, the iPhone was only introduced in 2008. It's 10 years old. That's it. It's amazing how quick that happened. And this is what we want to do our very best to see that Electrify Everything does. So we'll talk about how we're pulling that off and hopefully how others can too. This chart here is from the book Crossing the Chasm. Jeffrey Moore, I believe, is the author's name. If you don't own this book, change that today. Go buy Crossing the Chasm. This is so important for us to understand. So on the left, you have the early market, which is tech enthusiasts and visionaries. Visionaries are also known as early adopters. Everybody there is looking at either ooh, shiny, or they are the Joneses that the rest of us keep up with. They want to be the first people to have something. That is not the real market, though. You have not broken into the real market. To get to the mainstream market, you have to get into pragmatists and conservatives. They're also known as early majority and late majority. We have to find a way to cross this chasm, and home performance hasn't yet. So to appeal to pragmatists, they're pretty simple. They just want it to be better. I didn't get an iPhone until an iPhone 4, so I waited a couple years before I jumped. Now, I wanted one. It was a little bit of a stretch, so we didn't do it, and then we did it. So I'm a visionary who got held back into the pragmatist category. But my wife, who's a pragmatist on technology, she got to see how nice it was, and she loves her phone. She just wanted it to be better than what she had before, and it was. So this is what we have to show. This is a chart from Google Trends. You can go look this up yourself. This is Google searches for the term home performance since 2004. This is also an indication that home performance is stuck. It's really, really stuck. If this was working well, this graph would go up and to the right. And you can see it flatlines after it goes down a little bit from what happened within the early program days. So we haven't crossed the chasm. We are stuck in early market, and that is not going to help us electrify everything, because home performance projects are almost always involved in electrification. Let me recap a couple of things here, pull them together. So people electrify because they want to fix their houses. They're solving problems. Electrification is often a better option. Like I said, it's largely superior now. They don't electrify purely because they want to electrify. It's not a big enough driver. You might get a grand or two, but you're not going to get 20. Don't conflate electrification with solving problems. If you push electrification, you will lose them. If you push solving problems with things that happen to be electric, you've got a much higher chance of getting the project out. All right, I want to talk about a project example. So we're going to talk about Paul. His name's Paul Schultz. He's one of my favorite clients. He's this super sunny guy. He's a retired blue-collar guy. He worked for Cleveland Public Power here, actually, one of our local utilities. It's one of the munis here. And he's unique because he was actually a second-time client. So back when I was an installation contractor, he had one of the very few houses that we did top to bottom. So we did the basements, the walls, and the attic. We got a 50% reduction in the blower door out of that house, which for the program was so stunning that the test-out auditor, he didn't believe his gauge. So he actually took the blower door out, put it in a different door, and changed his manometer. And he came up with the same number, and we forever had his respect after that. And as it turns out, we had Paul's too. So Paul bought another house, which is the 1900 House of the Future case study on the Energy Smart Ohio website, and I'll have a link to this at the bottom. Paul had 3 goals. It was really pretty simple. He wanted to have a comfortable house. He wanted to have air conditioning, and he wanted to have low operating costs. So he's retired. It's now a fixed income for him. He bought this house largely because the tax rate on this, that the annual taxes on this house were just a hair more than the monthly taxes on his other house. So he moved here because it's cheaper, and it's also the neighborhood that he grew up in. And it's just a little house, a little 1,300 square foot joint. So when I got there, he had pulled the boiler out already. So this is May of 2015, and he was totally committed to forced air. It really cracked me up. I get there, the boiler's gone, and he had cut out all the pipes for the boiler lines. So he didn't know exactly how we were going to do it, but he said, Nate, I trust you. I want you to make my house good. What's it going to take? So the chimney there actually got taken out because now we didn't need it anymore. And we used that hole to run ductwork for the second floor, which was great. And then on the left, you can see the gas meter that's not there anymore. And I see Bill Spone asking if I can explain what a blower door test is, just in case somebody doesn't know what it is. A blower door is how you test the airtightness of a house. If they're leaky, it's like a leaky boat. You can't control them. So if you have a leaky boat and you want to make it perform better, you don't change the engine or the bilge pump. You fix the leaks. And that's how houses work too. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. This house, by the way, only got about a 50% reduction. This house drove me nuts. I got cocky at it. I said, Paul, thank you for buying such a nice, easy house, because I just finished a couple of projects that were nightmares, and this house just dogged me the whole project. But anyway, as part of the Home Performance 2.0 project or process that we use, we do load calculations because we need to understand where the house is today and what the load is going to be on the house once we fix it, so that we can size the HVAC to where the house is going, not where it is. So if you look on the bottom there, you see the 26,925. That is basically the manual J. When you get into higher performance homes, if you don't know this, manual J is really heavy. It's anywhere between 30 and 60% heavy. So we tend to trust the block load calcs that come out of our energy model, which are the 12,000 and the 8,000. So if you add those up, you get 20,000 BTUs, and this is at our 5-degree design temperature. It's as cold as we normally get in the winter. So I had to have a conversation with Paul because there's no furnace that will heat this house evenly. And you want to be able to match how much heating and cooling that house needs as much of the year as possible. So the smallest standard furnace you can buy is 40,000 BTUs. And if you want to go lower, you actually have to buy a modulating 60,000 BTU furnace, which will dip down to about 20,000. But that would only match the load of this house on a handful of really cold days. That just isn't good. So we plant seeds. So I remember this conversation really clearly. I said, Paul, this is going to sound really insane, but there isn't a furnace that we can put in your house that will do a good job. Don't tell me no. Wait on telling me no. But I'd like you to consider the idea that maybe we run a heat pump on the house. And being the really kind guy that he is and the trusting guy that he is, 2 weeks later we had another conversation. He said, Nate, let's go, let's do it. So let's see what happened. So take a look at this middle picture. And it is so quiet that this is the DJ at Paul's housewarming who actually set his laptop up basically touching the outdoor unit. This thing is spectacularly quiet in cooling mode. They can be a little noisy in heating, but at least you got all the doors closed. On the left, you can see the induction stove. Paul's wife, Tammy, ended up just loving this thing. And she loved it for stuff that I never would have seen coming. It has a 5th burner that's a warmer. So she could put some food on there and just keep it warm, and she loved that. And it has a convection oven because it's an upscale unit, and she'd never had a convection oven before, and it did her baking better. So she didn't really care. She didn't even talk about the induction, which just surprised me, but she really liked cooking on it. And then on the right, you can see the electric hot water heater. So in this case, since it's just the two of them, they opted for a standard electric water heater. And even though they have a bunch of guests, Paul has told me that they have never run out of hot water. Speaking of what Paul says, he speaks very slowly. So I asked him, so Paul, how are you feeling about the house and about the project? And in his very slow way, he said, Nate, Tammy and I are extremely satisfied with the comfort and energy use of our home. And he had started it off with kind of a negative tone, so I'm freaked out that he's mad at me. But he wasn't. Paul is super duper happy. We still talk every couple of months or thereabouts. He's such a super guy. So he is a guy, he is not an early adopter. That's just not Paul. He just wanted better. And so we turned him into a pragmatist. He probably isn't even a pragmatist. He's really late majority or conservative. So is Paul the only pragmatist client? And the answer is heck no. I would argue that pretty much all of our clients are pragmatists. So this is Carlton Sears. This is the 1957 Cape Cod case study. This house was really difficult. It had 7 attics, and a bunch of them were too small to fit into. So what you're looking at here is the back of his house. In phase 2, he was going to have a new roof put on. So we actually cut open the roof above a number of the knee walls, and we spray foamed them to get them sealed up. We got another almost 1,000 points out of the blower door on this thing. Carlton is super happy with this result. He had come to us because his office was too cold. He bought this to be the last house they own. It's on this beautiful little lake. We consistently find our clients have uncomfortable houses on amazing lots, and that was totally him. His office was getting into the 50s, and he works from home during cold days in the winter. Now, he emailed me through that cold snap, and he said, it was 7 degrees outside, and it's 70 in my office, 71 in the house. So we gave him better. That's what he wanted. He's not an electrification client yet, but I suspect that's coming when the HVAC gets replaced. So Paul and Carlton, like I said, these are not the only pragmatist clients, and how you get there is going slowly, matching what their goals are, what their budget is, and what the needs of their house are. If you can get those to cross, you've got yourself a project, and very often you can electrify. So actually, in the case of Carlton, he has an electric water heater as well, because we wanted to be able to seal off his chimney. Okay, let's take a step back. Let's look at the electrification problem from a 30,000-foot view. In my mind, there are 3 different things that need to happen here. And again, this is content from my Green Tech Media Electrify Everything article. That'll be linked to at the end. Go read it if you want to learn more. So the first thing we need to do, which I've been talking about here, is show that electrification is better. It can be cool, but mostly we need better, because that's what the pragmatists want. The second thing we need to do is dispel persistent myths and fears of both homeowners and contractors. And the third thing we need to do is remove policy and market barriers. So let's touch on these a little bit. So show that electrification is better. This cracks me up. Did you know that back in 1958, Ronald Reagan led an ad campaign for GE, and then also Westinghouse and Whirlpool were involved there, with a Live Better Electrically program. It just cracks me up that this happens. So the problem then was they had resistance electric cooking, which wasn't better. There were no electric cars. There were no heat pumps, or at least not good ones. And then, of course, all of the electricity that they were trying to sell there was made with a coal plant for the most part. So all of those problems have been resolved now. So now we can hold our heads high, say Electrify Everything is better, mean it, and actually win a campaign if we do another campaign like this. Okay, second thing, dispel persistent myths and fears. On the left is the contractor fear, heat pumps. Any HVAC contractor that's been around for a while has been burnt by a heat pump. There's all kinds of issues that can happen, and oftentimes it's technical difficulties. But the key thing is that typically they're being put into houses that aren't tight enough, And so the houses go into resistance electric at too high of a temperature. The client gets a really big electric bill, and then that HVAC contractor gets a really angry phone call. That's not true anymore. Between both home performance measures and the new inverter heat pumps, they will hang on to very low temperatures. So I've watched these things. I stayed up through the middle of the night, through the cold snap at the beginning of the year, watching all of my client heat pumps all of our clients. So we can get over that, but we're going to need to show contractors case studies, how-tos. It's going to take some time to move them, because otherwise you get what David Roberts got, which was a contractor getting in the way. They wanted to sell a furnace, even though he asked for a heat pump, and David didn't push hard enough to push through it because it was a lot more expensive. So that's hard. On the right, induction cooking. This is the hard thing, and we're going to be talking about this a lot. This is the keystone to electrification, is induction. If you can't get rid of the gas stove, you can't get rid of the gas meter. And the goal is to get rid of the gas meter if it's possible. So what you want to suggest is buying an induction hot plate, and that can oftentimes move people along. So if we can move people to induction, the electrification gets much, much easier. The only thing that we actually have an emotional connection to on fossil fuels in our house is usually gas cooking. If your house is warm, you don't really care how it got warm. If your shower is hot, you don't really care how it got hot. But you want controllable cooking, and induction offers that. All right, third piece is removing policy and market barriers. I'm going to touch on a couple pieces here. So this is a graphic from Florida Gas. They're trying to get people to switch over to natural gas. This is an issue. Most rebates and incentives out there lean towards fossil fuels. So when it comes to policy, please, anybody, if there's policy wonks on the call, please work on removing those policies. Don't necessarily worry too much about adding new stuff yet, but let's do what we can to even the playing field, although it's already fairly even. Now, if you are going to add new policy, please be fuel agnostic. So here's what I mean by this. If an electric company collects energy efficiency dollars, they cannot be used by the gas company and vice versa. What this ends up doing is preventing fuel switching, and Electrify Everything is a fuel switch. Typically, you're going to be getting rid of natural gas and putting electric in instead. So if policies aren't fuel agnostic, they're going to get in the way of fuel switches. We've seen this in New York. My partner lives there, and he's seen some kind of awful things happen because fuel switching wasn't allowed. Okay, remember this home performance chart? I have to say some hard things here. Policy has hurt home performance. Program design put my partner's company out of business. Program design ran me so hard in my insulation business that I shut it down. That wasn't all of it, but it was a piece of the puzzle. If we aren't careful, poor policy could turn the 3 to 5 year lead that we have right now into a decade lead. But worse, if policy is not carefully thought about, it could put us out of business and eliminate this business model. So please be very, 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 very careful about new policy. Remove first, add later. We have ideas on this if anybody wants to reach out about it. All right, another key piece, actually this is a crux. I should find some way to punch this up more. If we can't create predictable value for high performance homes, we're going to fail. It is not going to scale. 2 of our clients have sold their homes after the projects. Neither one of them got a penny extra. That means that they lit $15,000 to $20,000 on fire. That hurts their net worth. These are middle-class people. Middle-class people can't afford to burn net worth. And you don't need too many stories of that sort of thing happening before it's not going to be viral. It'll be viral in a bad way. So we have begun building, and anybody that wants to help reach out, this is an energy use intensity calculator. So all you need to put in is your zip code, your square footage, your electric usage, and your annual heating fuel usage. and we can compare you to other houses in your climate zone based on a Department of Energy data set. And then we can use that to see how your monthly costs compare to averages. Now, banks will lend against cash flows. If you've heard the car commercials that say if you make $400 a week, we'll get you in a car. What do you think the banks are lending against? They're lending against cash flows. So if we can show reliable cash flows that are easy to duplicate, we can potentially get houses valued. So this is one of the results from the calculator that we've built. And this is the 1915 house, the 1915 case study. So his house was horrific on energy costs. We got it at least a bit below average, not bad for a century home. And so you can see that if the reduced costs of his house were valued, he should be able to get $4,000 to $5,000 extra. Not going to cover the cost of the project, but it puts a dent in it. And if the efficiency or lack of efficiency was valued on this house before, it probably would have cost him $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So if we can get efficient homes valued, we actually have a really fighting chance, and it isn't necessarily that hard. By the way, there's a link to this calculator at the end, so anybody who's remotely interested, go take your house data, put it in there, and see what comes out. Okay, 30,000-foot view summary. Remove old policy, delay creating new, or be gentle creating new. Be fuel agnostic. Let's create value for efficient homes, real value, so not cherry-picked data. And the last thing, which I'm only going to touch on, is please promote carbon fee and dividends. We already have a nearly level playing field for Electrify Everything, but if carbon had a price on it, that would help immensely. Obviously very difficult politically, so I'm not counting on it, but I do think we're headed in that direction. Okay, so that's a 30,000-foot view. Let me zoom in. Let's talk about what happens at the ground level. So step one is buy renewable electricity now. So this list is for you personally and your clients personally. I'll zoom back out in a little bit and talk about how to talk about this with clients. But for now, it is really easy and inexpensive to buy renewable electricity. My cost went down. It took about an hour, and about a quarter of my carbon footprint evaporated. This is such an important thing to do. Please go do it. Go write about how you did it and promote it. That's what I did. It's been very helpful. Step two, you're going to get tired of this picture. I'm telling you, this is the keystone to electrification. It's insane that this is the keystone, but this is it. Spend $75, go buy an induction hot plate. You want to buy a decent one, otherwise the experience kind of sucks. I bought a $35 one, and my wife doesn't really like it. It works okay, but the user experience isn't great. So just go buy an induction hot plate. Step three is do the standalone stuff. So home performance work is highly interconnected. You've got building shell with air sealing and insulation, and you have the HVAC system. Those are really interconnected. You can't just jump in. But there's a bunch of systems in your house that are completely disconnected from everything else. So you can change your water heater. Your furnace doesn't care. So switch to a heat pump water heater. So as gas appliances die in your house, change them, or maybe change them early. Change your gas stove to an induction one. Change your gas dryer to an electric one. If you are planning to electrify, you're going to need a 200 amp panel. It's just going to be the minimum. That will work for most houses up to, say, 2,500, 3,000 square feet. And then consider running a 100 amp sub panel to your garage so that can handle 2 electric cars. And then, of course, buy an electric car if that makes sense. I will give a plug for used Nissan Leafs here. If you don't know about them, you can buy a 3-year-old Nissan Leaf with 20,000 miles on it for $8 to $10 grand all day long, pretty much around the whole country. That's a really nice car. It just happens to have very low range, so you can't drive a ton with it. But boy, it's a really sweet used car for $8 grand. Step 4, show it's better. So keep talking about better, 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 better. That's really important. You want to advocate apolitically. So you've got your hot plate. Maybe you've changed out some of your systems. Have your friends over. Cook. Show them what inductions like to cook on. Have fun with it. Talk about the changes that you've made and how things are better. Fifth step is beginning to figure out what you want to fix in your house. So make a ranked list of things you want fixed in your house. What bothers you? Is your second floor too warm? Do you have a kid with asthma that you think holding moisture levels down might help with? Do you have ice dams if you're in my climate? Do you have mold if you're in a southern climate or humid climate? What do you want to fix? Make that list. This is what we want our homeowners to do too. Step 6 is plan your home performance project. And this is typically going to involve some or all electrification, and then execute it. And step 7 is share your experience. So now you have an awesome house that's electrified, it's super comfortable, it's super healthy. Have people over. So you were already having people over for dinner. Now you can get bombed and everybody stay at the house for the night and really enjoy your time together and let them experience how comfortable your house is. So have people actually stay over, have overnight guests. So those are the 7 steps to electrify everything at the ground level. So buy clean juice now, buy an induction hot plate, do the standalone stuff, show it's better, advocate apolitically. There's your second alliteration for the day. Ranked list of things to fix, plan and execute a project, and share your experience. Oh, it's funny. Andrew Scatizzi mentioned this seems silly, but we see a lot of favorable opinions on induction stove for how easy they are to clean. Yes, yes, yes. We used to have a really cool old 1940s gas stove. It had 3 standing pilots. It was a really cool little machine, actually. It took me 4 hours to clean that thing well when we sold it. Now all we have to do is wipe the top off. Okay, how to talk about it. I'm going to get to this in a minute, but I need to recap a couple things first to drive things home. So remember, people electrify because they want to fix their houses. You want to focus on what they're trying to fix. Electrification is often a better option. They don't electrify just because they want to electrify. And don't conflate electrification with solving problems. You've got to solve problems. It's not a sales ploy. Don't lead with this. We want to do everything we can with Electrify Everything to make the adoption curve look like these vertical curves on the right. And what we're trying to do is attract pragmatists who want better. So here's how to talk about it. Ask your clients, what are they trying to solve? Make that ranked pain list from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I don't care, 10 being I don't care how much it costs to fix, do it now. Where do the problems that they have rank? And then those are going to be your goals. Those are going to drive the project, not we want insulation. No, we want to make the family room comfortable. Then always, always, always offer electric options. Plant seeds like I did with Paul. I didn't hammer him. I just told him that this is probably a good path. And then I let it grow. I didn't push. But always, always, always offer those options. This is a very important point that has been driven home to me recently. Pick a fight or make a sale. So this is why we stay away from climate. So the electric house that we just did recently, the new house, the builder is actually a climate skeptic. He just built an electric house. So that is pretty cool. So I could have picked a fight with him. Instead, we made a sale, and we are one house closer to where we want to go. So pick a fight or make a sale. Choose one. In fact, so my poor client was actually reading some comments. So Matt Grokoff took a pretty big swing at me and said, you have to force people to do this. You have to ram it down their throats. No. So Alyssa, our client, actually read this, and this is a screenshot of the comment. I can appreciate how passionate people get about it, but your approach will win a lot more hearts, minds, and wallets. That's important. So she has a gas stove. Yes, it bugs me, but it is what it is. I offered, she made her choice. Okay, If they're open, show them the 7 steps. Some people are going to care, some people aren't. Show them how to buy clean juice. This is where writing that article comes in. I will link mine. It's in the bottom. I took screenshots of how to do it step by step to buy clean electricity from Ohio utilities. Please go write an article and send it to them. The reason that I did this was I got tired of sitting down at client houses and taking an hour to switch them over, because I basically ended up having to do it for them. So this isn't ask me how I know this. But go promote that article. This is really important. Okay, induction hot plate. Funny story here. Ask people to make rational decisions, not emotional decisions about this. So one of our recent clients, her name is Lily, and we suggested induction cooking to her, and she said, heck no, I have no interest in it, don't even talk to me about it, and just totally put up a wall. My partner, in his infinite knowledge, he said, well, so have you tried it? Like, no. Okay, well then, are you making an emotional decision or a rational decision? Could you do us a favor, make a rational decision, buy a hot plate, try it out, see what you think. If you hate it, it's fine, but then you're making a rational decision. So she bought one. Guess what? She loved the thing so much that she can't imagine cooking on gas ever again. She's doing all of her cooking on this little hot plate. We couldn't believe the 180 that she made. She shocked us. It's amazing how this works. My wife was a 3-year pitch battle to get an induction stove. And about a month and a half ago, she looks at me and says, Nate, I like it just as well as gas. I hate to admit it. So let people try it. They need to make a rational decision about induction, because that is the linchpin to getting rid of the gas meter. This last one, this is hard. Be okay with choices. Your job, you are a guide. You are Yoda. You are Obi-Wan. You make suggestions, and then the hero, which is your clients, they choose the path. So do your best to advocate. So in the case with my client Alyssa there, I'm bummed she didn't get induction, but you know what? We failed at pulling for it hard enough. She didn't try an induction hot plate, so she doesn't know whether she likes it better or not. It is what it is. I am okay with her choice. That house is going to use like 50 or 100 therms a year. I just don't care. The other important thing about giving people choices and letting them make them is they own the choice, not you. So if something goes sideways, you are not 100% at fault for it. It is a shared decision. I want to make people feel a little bit better about hybrids too, because we have sold a handful of hybrids. Here's the deal. I don't want anybody here to sell an air conditioner ever again. Every air conditioner model on the market has a hybrid version, has a heat pump version for $200 to $500 more for the most part. Maybe it's $700, but we're not talking a huge amount of money to turn an air conditioner on top of a furnace into a hybrid. Just not that hard. So please, at least push people to make that $500 jump. That should be doable. Now, this is a client who is actually very eco-conscious. They bought a Tesla. Although, strange enough, they hadn't bought clean juice yet. They didn't know that was possible, so I helped them do that. But they weren't quite comfortable going heat pump only. I didn't quite get over the line on that one. So we put a really nice heat pump on top of a really nice furnace, and this is their energy usage for, it's almost exactly the last year, because this thing went in the middle of July last year. Take a look at their gas usage. 70 therms last year, 167 therms this year. So it's a total of 237 therms they used for the year for heating. That used to be 1,100. That is an 80% reduction in fossil fuel usage. Are you okay with that? I'm okay with that. In 15 years, when they replace the system, it can be a heat. Okay, summarizing, how to talk about it. What are your clients trying to solve? Offer electric options, plant seeds, don't push. Pick a fight or make a sale. Choose one. Please don't get into fights. Just ask what they want to fix. If they're open, show them the 7 steps. Encourage them to buy an induction hot plate so they can make a rational decision instead of an emotional one. And lastly, the hard one, be okay with their choices. All right, so we're almost done. What we've covered, we've talked about how electrification is gaining traction, what it is and what it isn't, showed you a project example and a half. We talked about high level and ground level views, how to talk about it. The last thing I want to talk about is building a movement for this, because this is something to build a movement around. So Electrify Everything is the rallying cry. This is how we quickly move the market from fossil fuels to renewable energy, whatever your motivations are. Now there's a problem here though. So electrification, building electrification goes through home performance. It kind of requires those projects in most climates. Home Performance 1.0, as we talked about, that is an abject failure. Home Performance 2.0 is what we need to do. So Home Performance 1.0 typically has 10 to 20% closing ratios and about an $8,000 average job. That is insufficient. That won't buy either a good insulation package on a retrofit, and it won't buy a good HVAC system. So it's just not enough. Conversely, Home Performance 2.0 is how we do it. So we've developed a system. We're going to be rolling it out to other people here soon. We actually have a negative sales cost because we get paid for every time we go to the house. We have a 70% closing ratio between the lead and the project, and our average project is $27,600. The electrification projects are actually on the higher side of that because you have to do both. So this is doable. This is how we're doing it. We do it repeatedly. We understand why it's working. And so we're going to be doing a beta group here soon. We're just starting it actually, of HVAC contractors, and then we'll be rolling out this more widely soon. So this is possible, people. We're really excited about it, super excited. I don't mean to sound salesy about it, but unless we get this to scale up, unless we get electrification to scale, we're in trouble. So building a movement, we need to cross the chasm. We need to get to those pragmatists. Home Performance 2.0 is a tool for getting there. So Electrify Everything is the rallying cry. I started a Facebook group back in February before all this stuff started really getting popular. So Electrify Everything Facebook group, join us there. We're talking nuts and bolts. We're not getting into politics. We're not talking climate. We're talking about how this stuff gets done and failures, good, bad, reviews of various electric things. This has been a really fun group. I've really enjoyed working on that. So please join us there. Just look up Electrify Everything on Facebook. And then I'll end with links. So thankfully you will get these from Brett. I touched mountaintops here. So if you want to go deep into anything, there are a whole pile of links of how to do that. So Brett, thanks for having me. And we're ready to take some questions.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Nate. Real quick before we get to your questions, and we got some time for questions, so feel free to put those in there. But I do want to say a huge thanks to all of our members, our board of directors, our volunteers, and a huge thanks to you all for joining us, as well as all of our sponsors, Mitsubishi Electric, T-Stud, world's most energy efficient structurally insulated frames, and Shrinergy on the go or in your house microgrid solutions. So as questions are rolling in here, let's take a look and see what we got. We got one here. Would you advocate for people sending their data for the EUI calculator, and how is your calculator better or compared to data sets from companies like Clearly Energy, Wegglewise, or My Utility Score?
Good question. I don't have a wonderful answer to that one. What we're trying to do is not just compare energy use, but actually convert energy use into home value. That's what we're trying to do with that, and I don't think anybody else is trying to. If somebody else wants to leapfrog us and go ahead, please do it. We don't need to lift this whole thing.
Nate, you mentioned that your home, you are waiting for a couple of years for new air-to-water heat pump technology to emerge. What are you waiting for exactly? There are some other pretty cool technologies out there. I think CO2 heat pumps is being mentioned. What do you think about what's out there?
So with hot water hydronic systems, which I have, low mass, slant fin, I need 180 to 200 degree water to heat the house when it gets really cold. Most air source heat pumps top out at about 130. The carbon dioxide is one that I'm watching, but I need somewhere between a 50 and 60,000 BTU heat pump, and the carbon dioxide ones are only 15,000, and they're pretty expensive. They're like $3,500 a pop. I'm not going to string 4 of them together. I'm going to wait for them to come out with one that's bigger.
So I have a question here. Heat pump water heaters, ones that are not ducted. I mean, I've heard complaints and actually seen some examples where they do steal energy from the heating and cooling system and draw down the or increase the demand. So what are your thoughts on when somebody brings that up, and then how that might play into ducted heat pump water heaters?
So I haven't done a ducted one, but heat pump water heaters are not a panacea. They're kind of close, but it depends. So they make a little bit of noise, so you don't want to put them super close to bedrooms where there could be vibration issues. They need a decent amount of space to be in, so I'm biased by where I live. We have basements, and you just put one in a basement and it's fine. Out west, you can put one in a garage, and it's usually fine. In warmer climates, you can do that. So it's not perfect. You've got the noise. You have, yes, it does cool things a little bit, but it's not a lot. It knocks 1 or 2 degrees off my basement. I don't know, it's not a perfect solution, but it's not bad. Does that help? If they have a follow-up?
Yeah, well, they can follow up if not. So looking at one of the projects you mentioned about removing chimneys, do you ever use, chimneys are notorious, especially old ones, for being durability issues and leak problems. So do you use that as a selling point to say, hey, look, this is sort of a future preventative thing by removing this chimney, and then obviously, okay, we've removed the chimney, so that widens our possibilities or reduces some of our possibilities of what systems we can use.
Can I just say that is an awesome point? I hadn't thought about that, and that's totally going to sell a project. So thank you. Who was it, by the way?
Well, I'll admit that came from me, so there's a freebie for you.
Well, thank you, Brett. You probably just helped close a project somewhere.
All right. So there you have it, everybody. Tell people, get rid of that chimney, don't let it leak. I had it happen to me personally, so not very fun. But let's see what other questions are coming in here. There was kind of a question, and I think the handout link page, and I'll go back to this here just to make sure. But I mean, do you have any other resources available for contractors to find out about new and different approaches to accomplish electrification?
Most of the stuff's going to be in there. We haven't rolled out. What we're actually going to do is develop a platform. So if you think about Airbnb, what it ends up doing is concierging the relationship between the host and the guest. A week ahead, you get an email, hey, you might want to reach out to your host and let them know when you're coming. We're going to make this so that it's a transparent process for both the homeowner and the contractor to know what's going on and walk them through the process, because the process works, but it's long. And so you just have to take it one step at a time. It's eating an elephant, one bite at a time. So we're doing this beta group right now. Once we get to the beta group and find a whole bunch of ways that people break it that we haven't thought of yet, we'll begin to roll out the platform. And then that's going to just help you step by step go do these projects and this process.
Gas fireplaces are a huge amenity that people love. How do you deal with that?
Optimist. Go look it up. Mist with M-Y-S-T, so Y is in yellow. Can't remember the Dimplex, I think, is the manufacturer. It sounds insane, but what they do is they atomize water and they shine LED lights on it, and it looks like fire. They're actually a lot better than the fireplaces oftentimes. One of the things people don't talk about with the fireplaces is if you have a tight house and you turn on a 20,000 BTU fireplace, you're going to smoke yourself out in like 10 minutes. You can't leave them on. Where these Optimus, the higher models have, they're modulating. So they'll turn themselves up and down in output to match whatever temperature you set it at. And in the meantime, you can run the flames all the time. So if you look around at, say, a Burger King or a Starbucks and you see an open flame going, take a closer look at that. It may well be an Optimist.
Nate, I have to say, when you just randomly or yelled out optimist, I thought you were going to end it there and say, be an optimist about it. My brain hurt when I had to hear you actually say it was a product.
I know, it's kind of funny, but that's actually the name of the product. It's a nice product. I've seen it in action. I'm like, okay, sold. I'm done.
I'm going to use that one. So does indoor air quality IAQ play a significant role in your pitching of induction ranges to customers? Does describing a gas stove as unvented combustion appliance get a reaction? Is this on people's radar?
It's on their radar. We talk about it. I watch people's faces as I talk about things, and I haven't seen that hammer people hard. I think they're in denial of it, but in time they come around. The thing I found that works a little bit better is like, so would you breathe from the tailpipe of your car? No, you probably wouldn't. Do you realize that that's what you're doing when you're cooking over a stove? And sometimes that'll get the lights to go off, but not always. Some people are just in denial. Again, we're planting seeds, and then we hope they grow. And if we fail at planting seeds, we need to look in the mirror for why that failed. It's not the client's fault, that's our fault.
So there's a question about wood burning, but I'm going to add a little bit to it because what we kind of see with some of these more rural projects where folks can, get basically free wood that's just going to rot in the woods anyway, and use it to, heat their house, using these advanced wood stoves. What are your thoughts when you come across those projects, or how do you approach that if you did?
Honestly, we haven't. The closest one that I have is my in-laws have a wood boiler outside their house. They've got a very tight house, actually, an 1,800 square foot ranch with 1,000 blower doors, so it's like a 2.5 ACH 50. They use that to heat their house. If you are going to put anything that burns something in your house, particularly after you get them tightened, it must be one that has a fresh air intake, because you don't want to be depressurizing the house.
I thought I heard you say when you do electrification projects on top of home performance, it costs a little bit more. And then on top of that, or leading to the rest of the question is, aren't there savings that can be found when you're just doing one heat pump unit as opposed to trying to do a gas furnace plus an AC during an upgrade?
Typically, the costs of a furnace and a heat pump versus a heat pump are actually pretty close to each other. You're going to be within, say, $1,000. What we end up talking about oftentimes is because we're in a humid climate, we ask people to install a ventilating dehumidifier because that's going to be able to manage their indoor air quality. It'll be able to keep the house dry. And if you use the right heat pump, you don't have to install a dehumidifier. So electrification is oftentimes actually cheaper. In fact, this new house that we just completed, part of the reason they went for the heat pump is because they could delete the ventilating dehumidifier and still get the good air quality. So it ended up making it a little bit less expensive. The reason I said that the electrification projects are more expensive is because they require doing both shell and HVAC, and a lot of our projects are shell only. So it's not a fair comparison.
That explains it. And then have you dealt with or thought about dealing with anyone on the new construction side and and what kind of different opportunities or challenges might come with presenting electrification there.
Yeah, we're on our 4th new house project right now. We're still developing out the process. It's not perfect yet, but the key piece of it is the homeowner has to drive it. Can't be driven by the builder. So even though we work with a builder, we insist that his clients pay us directly, because we don't want to have the moral hazard of waiting on a payment from him so that we might say something that we wouldn't otherwise say just because we want to get our check. So there's a lot of moral hazard questions that we try very hard to think about. So that's coming. We'll have a program for that.
All right. Well, Nate, that's all the questions I see. So I really want to thank you for your time and attention in putting this on today. And just right before we wrap up, where can people contact you or find out more information?
Oh, great question. So yeah, the last slide there. Email's best, nate@energysmartohio.com. There's also the Facebook Electrify Everything group. Please join. I'm active in there. And then my Twitter handle there is also EnergySmartOhio. So feel free to tweet at me. You'll see me out there. Follow me, retweet, and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, Nate, thanks for your time. Take care, everyone.